Information Communication Technologies within Mathematics, Year 2 Geometry by James Holmes. In this presentation, we're going to be looking at the Australian curriculum, specifically within geometry in a Year 2 level and covering information communication technologies. We'll also look at the benefits and the disadvantages of information communication technology, specifically within the two apps, GeoBoard and Geometry Pad. For the curriculum, the two curriculum strands that we're specifically going to be looking at are within the Year 2 strand of the ACARA website, and we've got describe and draw two-dimensional shapes with and without digital technologies, and investigate the effect of one-step slides, flips, with and without digital technologies. So both of the apps that I'm going to look at, one is for each of those curriculum things. So the first app is GeoBoard. Alrighty, the first app is GeoBoard. As you can see, GeoBoard's set up with all these little pins, and you get Lackey bands, and you can create shapes using these Lackey bands. Other features are you can increase or change the size of your board for different shapes. You can also add a grid and number that grid. So the biggest we could have was 9 by 14 rectangle, obviously. With this app, you can also duplicate the shape, and from there you can rotate, flip, and translate the shape to whichever way you like, and create different shapes. You can also, if you have more than one shape, you can individually color a shape by clicking on it and then clicking on the individual button. And if you press the double button, it will change the coloring. It has a built-in calculator feature, so you can add your calculations onto your page. And a handy pencil app, so you can actually write in your measurements. Alrighty, my second app is Geometry Pad. Alrighty, so the next one we're going to look at is Geometry Pad. Now this one has a lot of interesting features, but I'm just going to focus on a few of the easier features for the Year 2 level mathematics. So as you can see, I've just created a triangle. I've kept it a right angle triangle because that's fairly simple. On this button here, you can see that we have our rotation, reflection, translation, and enlargement buttons. So I'll start off with the easy one, rotation. So with that one, I select whereabouts I want my point of rotation to be. So I might move it to point C. And from there, we can clearly rotate our shape around, and it tells us how many degrees we've actually rotated that shape around. Same thing for if we were to reflect it, we have lines of reflection. So we can actually change those lines of reflection from 2 points and then flip the shape. Another thing that we can do is we can translate. So we can actually pick it and move it. And as you can see, it'll actually tell you that we've moved it positive 2, so that's 2 up, 3 across, or 2 across, 3 down, or 2 to the left, and beat the worker. You can also enlarge it. So by pulling it up the scale factor or down the scale factor, it will allow you to enlarge and decrease it. This is a really handy tool for the ACARA. Alrighty, so the benefits of GeoBoard, it's a great app for identifying shapes and how they're formed. It works well with younger children as it is easy, it's fun, it's brightly coloured for visual learners. It's perfectly adaptable for an interactive whiteboard, bringing in another aspect of information communication technology into the classroom. Benefits of GeoBoard. GeoBoard's a great app for identifying transition, rotate, and mirror in different shapes. There is another app out there like GeoBoard called GeoGebra, but I found GeoGebra to be a little bit too difficult to follow personally. Therefore, I feel that it is also very difficult for children to follow, whereas GeoBoard's a lot more simple and easy. It's best suited for a teacher to be using it with an interactive whiteboard, getting rid of the need for graph paper and allowing more working out with less paperwork and destruction of paper, because to do these movements on a piece of graph paper takes so long and so much paper when you're flipping and rotating and stuff like that, and still trying to keep them in the grid lines, it becomes very difficult. While ICT is important, it should never take over completely. We need to remember that number one, the people that make this are out for a profit. They're not always necessarily worried about children's education. They're more worried about turning a profit, especially with apps and games and websites. I found a lot of apps and a lot of game websites that said they were educational, but there was minimal, if any, um, educational benefit. For example, there was one called Geo Rush, and it was classed as a geometry based game. However, the only reason it was geometry based was because your character was a square and you had to navigate through a maze. There was minimal educational benefit from it. There was no learning. It was just go through the maze, and if you get through, you win. If you don't, you don't. So we just need to remember that when it comes to information technology, that we need to find ones that are definitely beneficial for our students and their education. References, I use the GeoBoard app, which is made by the Math Learning Centre, and Geometry Pad is made by Bytes Arithmetic. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it educational and interactive. Thank you.